Hi folks, it's Stuart from the Courtyard Cafe. Welcome back to the kitchen. It's Good Friday and I thought what better recipe to make today with Easter on Sunday than some hot cross buns with some beautiful candied peel, orange zest, sultanas and some spices as well. The first stage in making hot cross buns is to have 300 milliliters of full cream milk into the pan and bring that up to the boil. You can hear the milk heating up. You can hear the bubbles starting to form as it is coming close to boiling. And now that it's at the boil, I will add 50 grams of butter and whisk until that melts down. I leave it to cool now until it's just warm to the touch. These are the dry ingredients. It's 500 grams of strong bread flour. Strong bread flour is a flour which is a high gluten content, which helps when making bread. I've got 1 teaspoon of table salt and 7 grams of yeast. And here, 75 grams of caster sugar. Simply add the other dry ingredients to the flour. And stir until it's all incorporated. Make a well in the center of the dry ingredients. And here in the saucepan I've got the milk and butter, which is cooled down just until you can put your hand in it without it burning. If the milk and butter mixture was too hot, it would kill the yeast and hot cross buns just wouldn't rise. So continue mixing until it starts to form a dough. And at this stage, I'll add a lightly beaten egg. This turns into what's known as an enriched dough by the addition of eggs and butter. After a couple of minutes of mixing, I've got a soft, sticky dough. And after putting a little bit of flour onto the bench, I'll tip the dough out and start to knead it. This stage is absolutely vital because the time that you put in will improve the texture of the finished hot cross buns. At this stage, if I try, the dough will actually fall apart. And that's because the gluten, which is a protein in the flour, hasn't begun to develop into strands, and that happens by kneading the bread, by working it. And after 5 to 10 minutes, the dough will become much softer, much more elastic, and be ready then for the process of proving. I've been kneading the dough now for a bit over 5 minutes, and already I can feel a difference. If I pinch it, it sort of pulls itself back into shape again. And now, if I try to tear it, it just stretches. That tells me that the gluten has begun to develop. And I'll put the dough back into the bowl again. Just a touch of flour. Cover that with cling film and I'll put it somewhere warm for about an hour, but until it doubles in size. As you can see from the dome in the cling film, the yeast has been doing its thing. The dough has doubled, at least, in volume. You can see that as I touch the dough, it's got really, really soft. And it's ready for the other ingredients to be added. The ingredients that I'm going to add are 75 grams of sultanas, 50 grams of mixed peel, the zest of 1 orange and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And for a real fresh fruit hit, I have peeled and finely diced 1 apple. There's now nothing else for it But to start folding the dough, it's almost like a kneading action again, but what you're doing is distributing the fruit and the cinnamon, the zest and so on, evenly through the dough. And keep turning it, keep kneading it until everything is evenly mixed. It does take a bit of work, but it's definitely worth it. Everything's mixed in. When you're working with dough, the stage after it is proved for the first time is known as knocking the dough back. And that has happened here. In mixing through the fruit, spices and so on, it has taken a lot of the air out of the dough. So at this point I'm going to cover it up with cling film again and set it back somewhere warm to prove again until it's doubled in size. The dough has proved for a second time and has really risen very well. What I am going to do now is take it out of the bowl and onto my bench and divide it into 3 pieces. This batch of dough should make 15 hot cross buns in total, and I find it easier if you subdivide it first into the 3 batches and then work from there to get the same amount in each of the hot cross buns. I have divided the 3 lots. I'm just going to mark these so that it'll help me divide up the dough as evenly as possible. I'm going to work these so that they form something like the final shape that we expect from them. And after a little bit of work, I've got the 15 hot cross buns made. Put a little bit of baking parchment on my baking tray. What I'm going to do now is cover those loosely with a clean tea towel and set them in the heat to allow them to prove for a third and final time before they go into the oven. Hot cross buns wouldn't be hot cross buns without the cross, obviously. And to make the paste that becomes the cross, it's really just some plain flour and water, and you mix that until it becomes a thick paste. That's about the right consistency now. It's a fairly thick paste, but I want something that I will be able to pipe onto the top of the hot cross buns. And those have risen pretty much as I would like them. The idea is to run the flour and water paste over them in each direction. That's them ready for the oven. Put the crosses on. They need to bake for about 20 minutes at 200 degrees in a fan oven. And I suppose, as well as the cross, the other thing that you associate them with is a sticky topping. And that's done very, very simply. A little bit of apricot jam, just heated in the microwave. Do be careful because it gets hot very quickly. And then with a pastry brush, brush just a little bit to form a glaze on the top of each. And that's them, hot, glistening, sticky, smelling wonderfully sweet, and of all of the spices that are in there, I'm looking forward to one of these and a cup of tea. A very happy Easter to all of the guys in Stepping Stones. Have a great time, and we'll see you all when the holiday's over.